Okay, hi guys. So I've been doing some research this morning and I haven't done a lot of research lately. I did have this topic was requested and I've been wanting to make a longer research video for a while. So we're going to start. The topic is thought as frequency. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. I found some pretty good articles. I'm just going to read the major points here that I saw. So let's see. We'll just start with the intro here. One of the great revelations of 20th century science is that all existence can be broken down into simple wave functions. So we know this. Every photon, energy emission, and elementary particle rings with its own unique wave signature. When we see color, we are actually seeing a distinct frequency of visible light. When we hear sound, our eardrums are actually being vibrated by subtle waves in the air molecules around us. Even the neurochemical processes of human consciousness, our very thoughts, should be commas there, ring with their own distinct wave patterns. And so Tesla did some study on this. He studied the way, by studying the way that waves interact with other waves. Researchers have found that even low-powered oscillations can have enormous effect on standing waves, physical structures, and even the human brain. So I will show you what standing waves are here in a minute. The principle which describes this particular wavelength interaction is known as resonance. When you resonate with something, you are emitting a wave signature which is in sync with it. By applying a constant resonant frequency to a standing wave, you can intensify, reinforce, and prolong the standing frequency of that wave. So I will show you, and of course there's going to be links. In physics, a standing wave, also known as a stationary wave, frequency wave of any kind, is a wave in which its peaks here or any other point on the wave do not move spatially. The amplitude of the wave at a point in space may vary with time, but its phase remains constant. The locations at which amplitude is minimum are called nodes, and the locations where the amplitude is maximum is called antinodes. Okay, so don't worry if you don't understand that. I'll just show you the chart real quick. It's pretty easy. Standing waves were first noticed by Michael Faraday. In 1831, Faraday observed standing waves on the surface of a liquid in a vibrating container. We've all seen that. He coined the term standing wave and around 1860 and demonstrated the phenomenon in his classic experiment with vibrating strings. This phenomenon can occur because the medium is moving in the opposite direction to the wave, or it can arise in a stationary medium as a result of interference between two waves traveling in opposite directions. So what I'm getting at here is we generally will have, with two people thinking, and generating a thought wave off of themselves, we're going to have this type of reaction, right? A direction of a red wave, a direction of a blue wave. So here's the labels on those, but and your different types of reactions here. Now, a standing wave is when the frequencies are oppose each other in such a way that it causes the waves to form. The two opposing waves will become standing. Temporarily, they will become stationary. Okay. So it goes over the experiment here, how he learned about resonant waves. Oh, I did want to look. I did want to mention really quick on the waves. How do I go back here? On the waves, let's see what it says. Amplitude of the wave and the phase of the wave. So what I learned was actually amplitude and frequency, amplitude being the height, frequency being the length of the wave. But that's changed now. That's called phase. So just real quick as an aside there, that's not what I learned, but it could have been changed, the terminology or whatever. By studying the way that waves interact with other waves, researchers have found that even low-powered oscillations can have enormous effects on standing waves. So, physical structures and even the human brain. The principle which describes this particular wavelength interaction is known as resonance. When you resonate something, you are emitting a wave signature which is in sync with it. Okay, so I just read that again, so to emphasize. Tesla first realized, okay, that's his experiment. We'll go past that. It's an interesting experiment in which he almost vibrates down the Brooklyn Bridge. So, the principle cannot fail, Tesla would say. He understood that a steady frequency of tiny waves would eventually create enormous ripples if they were timed just right. So I want you guys to think about as if the frequency and the waves are thoughts, and extending into words and music even. What Tesla demonstrated was a principle of resonance known as entrainment, the ability of a frequency to cause a less powerful frequency to fall into rhythm simply by playing the two frequency emitters in close proximity. So two people in close proximity, thinking about things, talking about things, right? This is the interaction. I don't know that I need to go over the numbers there. Okay, so this guy Monroe, recent research regarding the mind-altering possibilities of Tesla's entrainment principle have been undertaken by Robert Monroe, the founder of the Monroe Institute in Faber, Virginia, a student of engineering and human physiology. Monroe's interest in human consciousness began in 1956 when he set up a small research and development program in his New York-based radio company. The research was initially designed to determine the feasibility of learning during sleep. But in 1958, an astonishing result emerged. By experimenting with the effects of sonic frequencies on the brain, Monroe successfully isolated a little-known state of awareness, which was totally separated from the physical body. The research team called it an out-of-body experience, or OBE, a term which has since become a generic description for many unexplainable mind states. The sonic principle he was using was already known to electronic engineers as binaural beat frequency modulation. We'll look at that, and I actually have an example to show you. A key concept used in all radio receivers today. However, it was Monroe who took this idea from the field of radio electronics and applied it to bioelectronics. He called his discovery hemispherical synchronization, or hemisync for short. To achieve these novel mind states, the OBE, what they called, or ESP or whatever, Monroe recorded 2 channels of audio data using a stereo tape recorder. On one channel, he recorded a frequency of 200 CPS, I think that's cycles per second, and which would be an arc or a wave on the frequency would be 1 cycle, an arc and a downturn, right, would be 1 cycle. And on the other channel, he recorded a frequency of 208 cycles per second. When he played the recording back through a pair of stereo headphones, what Monroe discovered was that one ear heard the 200 cycles per second tone, and the other ear heard the 208 cycles per second tone. The brain interpreted the tones as 8 cycles per second frequency and began to entrain itself to that frequency. In other words, the brain could only distinguish the 8 cycles per second difference, and this frequency was powerful enough to entrain brain waves. So binaural beat frequency modulation, we'll look at this. Here's just a diagram of it real quick to look at it. This is what the wave would look like, the frequency. You see we've got this little blips here, right? So a binaural beat frequency, it's a beat. In acoustics, a beat is an interference pattern between two sounds of slightly different frequencies, perceived as a periodic variation in volume, whose rate is the difference of two frequencies. When tuning instruments that can produce sustained tones, beats can be readily recognized. So I have an example of this, just to show you, and it's really easy to understand when you look at this example. Tuning two notes to a unison will present a peculiar effect. When the two notes are close in pitch, but not identical, the difference in frequency generates the beating. So still thinking of language, two people speaking, communication, and thoughts, two people being in proximity. The volume varies like a tremolo. As the sound, this is your tremolo here. Alternately, that's the little blip that I talked. I forget, my pointer doesn't show. Like a tremolo, as the sounds alternately interfere constructively and destructively. As the two tones gradually approach unison, the beating slows down and may become so slow as to be imperceptible. And so I'll show you here as an example of this in action from fiction. Both of these principles, beat acoustics or binaural beat frequency, and the standing wave are being shown in this example. So, and if you have not watched this series, I really, really, really recommend it. So here's that.
In the back room.
Quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Quick brown fox bows before the little fox.
Slow black dog bows before the regal fox. Slow black dog bows before the regal fox. Slow black dog bows before the regal fox.
The slow black dog bows before the regal fox. The slow black dog bows before the regal fox. The slow black dog bows before the regal fox.
So moving on here, the neural radio. Normally the two hemispheres of the brain vibrate at different frequencies. Huh? I didn't know that. But Monroe discovered that they could be easily synchronized. He also found that when both hemispheres were entrained to vibrate around 8 cycles per second, creativity, intuition, and a tendency toward extrasensory perception all increased dramatically. So I think of this personally as being in the zone. And when you are in the zone, or you are calm, or however you think of it when you're in your best state, your two hemispheres of your brain are vibrating they're being entrained to vibrate right around 8 cycles per second. So they are synchronizing. They're complementing. You don't want to say they're at the same frequency, because they're not, because what's happening is the two frequencies are achieving that 8 cycles per second difference. They're synchronizing. Okay? Your two sides of your brain. Research has shown that the human brain operates at a wide range of frequencies, but generally stays, and that may be related to the Schumann resonance. I do have another source over here. Where is it? Here? I'm not sure if I'll get to that. It's pretty big. Anyway, we'll just talk about this for a second. Research has shown that the human brain operates at a wide range of frequencies, but generally stays in 4 major levels of awareness known as beta, 13 to 30 cycles, alpha, 8 to 12, theta, 5 to 7, and delta, 1 to 4. So when you watch TV, the TV is doing this to you. It is giving you this synchronization between the two parts of your brain, the two hemispheres. It's forcing your brain to go into alpha and to be at that state in which you can take in a lot of information and be programmed. So the state, this state can be used for your good, your own good. You can use it for your own benefit. Or it can be used to program you if you're not actively trying to program yourself. Basically, you look at the things that you want to program when you watch TV, for example. When you are talking up a storm, okay, I go back to low. The highest level is beta, and in this state, the brain is very active and very awake. The state is usually associated with intellectual thought and verbal expression. When you're talking up a storm, your brain is vibrating between 13 and 30 cycles per second. So, theoretically, when you are conversing with somebody and you're just really having a great conversation, the two of you, the frequency, the cycles per second are matching up in a way that is producing this binaural beat frequency. So the alpha level is the next state down, and it is associated with a much more relaxed, calm, and creative waking state. A nice alpha level can be achieved with a simple meditation or slowing your breath. As your breathing slows, other body functions, including your brain frequencies, will begin to relax and slow down. When you are completely relaxed but not yet asleep, your brain hums at around 8 to 12 cycles per second. 8 or 9 cycles per second is considered a very creative state, marked with contemplative thought and increased intuition. Moving down the awareness scale, we arrive at the theta frequencies, and a very interesting set of frequencies they are. Who wrote this? This 5 to 7 cycles per second range is where dreams, deep hypnosis, ESP, out-of-body projections, channeling, and other odd mind phenomena start to pop up. Somewhere in this range lies what is called the hypnagogic state, the twilight zone of consciousness on the border between being awake and being asleep. This is the gray area where consciousness and subconsciousness start to overlap. Much of us only get a quick, half-remembered glimpse into this realm as we are going to sleep or waking up. However, with Monroe's techniques of brain entrainment, this theta state can be sonically induced, allowing the entrainee to have extended periods of theta exploration. And the last level of brainwave activity is the delta range, and these frequencies are usually only associated with deep, dreamless sleep. So I think a lot of us are going down into delta a lot lately, it seems. Now I want to talk a little bit about the theta state. This is right when you're getting to sleep, you close your eyes and you're starting to fall asleep. You will start to take in a lot of things. And I don't know about all of this entrainment technique, but I have found that basically if you want to extend this state a little longer and start to remember and to take in the things that you see during that time, you just really need to want to do that and just try to practice to do that. I don't believe personally that you need to go to outside sources to entrain your brain as they've got here. So, but it's up to you. There's some information here, some things you could order to do that. So, I just want to look now on this article here. It's really long, so I'm not sure that I want to go over. I'm going to link it, of course, and there's a lot of information. So they talk a little bit more about music and that. And if you'll notice in the example, the Philip K. Dick clip that I showed, there was a beat. Language and music are closely related. And so there is a beat to your speech. And just as that woman did, you know, she was mind reading him or whatever, she achieved a beat, an overriding frequency, and a standing frequency, which caused him to submit to her telepathy or whatever. So that's an example in fiction, but it's a pretty good example when you're theorizing about thought frequency. Thought is frequency. So we know, you know, musical notes and all of that. So I just want to read the sound section here. Now, just to say, this article is one of those articles where they give you a lot of pretty good knowledge as bait to kind of bait you in, and I'll just show you down here where it kind of baits you into wanting to know more about Hermes Trismegistus, and kind of making it sound like extremely appealing knowledge that you might want to find, that it's occult and all of that. So just when you look at this website, just be forewarned. Not all of the information here is well, to put it this way, the information that is contained therein is meant as bait to pull you into the occult. So just be aware of that. But there are some pretty good charts here of hertz measurements of different frequency waves and things. This might be helpful to some people who are looking at the Schumann resonance, this chart. So now I did check my ear ringing and what the frequency is, and it's around 2600 hertz. And the left ear has stopped ringing for some weeks now, so it doesn't seem to make that much difference to me. The right ear still rings, and it's just not much different. It's always been the same with this ringing. Anyway, we'll just read the sound part, and then there's another article, just a little bit. I know I tend to get a little dragged on here, a little long. There's something called the sacred sound current, which correlates to the spiritual Hindu Om and the Sufi Hu and the Sant Shabd, I don't know what that is, meditation words. The music of the spheres, logos. Right? The logos. Look at us always looking at the logos. What, Wood's on at 10 o'clock in the morning? Okay. So, the music of the spheres, logos, or word, as called in mystical teachings, goes beyond our limited spoken language. Ethereal music is referred to also as the sound of God or the breath of God, since the sound permeates all things. And as we know, all things are composed of energy. This all-pervading sound in the current of the ocean of consciousness is believed to be the connecting link between God and man. The Word. The divine currents are always playing a symphony of ethereal music. However, it does not become audible until we have progressed spiritually enough to hear with the inner ear. Additionally, many mystics, ancient and modern, have reported seeing various colors with the inner eyes while in meditation. As physics deems all is in vibrational state and thus can be converted into mathematical renditions, musical notes, and color frequencies. So, light and sound is also viewed as synonymous with each other in the ancient scriptures. Light and sound. So we have these frequencies, light and sound frequency and thought frequency, that seem to be all very much connected, forming what they are describing as an ethereal field. You know, the terminology could be scientific or it could be mystical. We're still ending up talking about the same things. They are interconnected and part of the whole within the wave-particle duality. So then you end up having these interactions that I described before. The beat, the binaural beat, standing wave, that type of thing. We can parallel the holographic universe concept with what Philo of Alexandria wrote circa 40 CE, current era. I guess that's AD to me. The whole creation, this entire world perceived by our senses, is a copy of the divine image, but the shadow of God is his word, which he used like an instrument when making the world. And this shadow and, as it were, model, is the archetype of other things. Right? We can also note the similarity to Carl Jung's archetype within the collective unconscious. So we'll read the quote and we'll end it there. But I do recommend this article, and I will link also here. This article, Scientist Proves DNA Can Be Reprogrammed by Words and Frequencies. The musician is very close to mysticism, far closer than the philosopher, because music is meaningful without any words. It is meaningful simply because it rings some bells in your heart, creates a synchronicity between you and itself. When your heart starts resonating in the same way, when you start pulsating in the same way. So I liked that quote because, you know, I really like music. I'm really into music. So yeah, here's your charts and all of that. Pretty good topic, pretty interesting. A lot to think about there as relates to thought. You know, these articles are more relates to sound and other frequencies, but the same principles apply, I suspect. So anyway, I love you guys. I have a great day. Hopefully this wasn't too long. And I may or may not go live tonight. I'm not really sure. So sorry, I'm not the most predictable of people. But I do love you guys. God bless. I hope this little bit of research is interesting to somebody or is useful to some of you. So have a great day.